Hello and good evening, everybody. And as you can see right here, what I would like to talk about tonight is for the very first time, I would like to discuss British hard rock, maybe heavy metal artist UFO. That's right. Formed in the late 60s and became a very dominant powerhouse all throughout the 70s. And tonight I am going to review their fourth studio album released in the year 1975 entitled Force It. And there is the cover right there, which you can probably imagine caused some controversy back in the day. But as I usually like to do, what I want to do is I kind of want to give you a brief history lesson as to how these guys formed and how we ended up at the point where we are tonight. So as I said, they formed in the year 1968, and they were originally, again, brought about by lead singer Phil Mogg, who remained the one consistent member all throughout the band's tenure. And he was joined by guitarist Mick Bolton, bassist Pete Way, and drummer Andy Parker. And originally they called the band Hocus Pocus for some reason, but later came to their senses and decided to change the name of the band to UFO, and I am eternally grateful for that. So anyways, their very first album came out in the year 1970, and it was just entitled UFO 1. So clearly they were planning on making more albums, obviously. And overall, I thought it was an okay album. I know a lot of people seem to really hate these first couple of albums, but I really enjoy it. But having said all that, the band had not fully found their sound yet, because this was not the straightforward hard rock song that they are most well known for. They were really more of a space rock band, and they were more akin, they were almost kind of like Pink Floyd in a sense. Now, make no mistake, they were definitely more hard rocking than Pink Floyd was, but their style and the mood that they were creating in those first couple of albums, at least to me, was very reminiscent of Pink Floyd. Anyways, on that first album, they had a lot of covers, actually, such as Come On Everybody, Who Do You Love, which was a great cover, by the way. And then they had Come Away Melinda, and I spoke about this on a previous episode not too long ago, but that was also covered by the band Uriah Heep on their very first album in the year 1970. So I'm not sure what it was with bands that began with U wanting to cover this song in the year 1970, but, 2 for 2, I guess. But anyway, some other highlights from the album were the Unidentified Flying Object instrumental, Boogie for George, and Evil. Now, none of the stuff on this album was even close to what most people would associate this band with. A lot of these songs have kind of faded into obscurity, but, they were really great songs, and they were good for what they were, I guess you could say. So anyways, in the year 1971, they came back, and they released their second album entitled UFO 2, Flying. And this was definitely excessive, I'll say that. It only had 5 songs, but they were very ambitious. We had a song called Starstorm, which was over 18 minutes. It was actually pushing 19 minutes. And so you can imagine they were jamming quite a lot in that. But believe it or not, that was not the longest song on the album, because there was the title track, simply called Flying, which was over 26 minutes. Ridiculous? Absolutely. Do I like it? Yeah, I do kind of, okay? But anyways, like I said, the album was only 5 songs, and most of them were not very mainstream, commercially accessible. So obviously, the UFO 2 Flying album is not exactly what most would point to when trying to determine, the band's best material. But like I said, just like the first album, it was good for what it was. So anyways, later that year, they released a live album, and the live album was okay. It was just called UFO Live, and it included a couple songs from Flying, a couple songs from the UFO 1 album, and another cover that was never released on any album. So anyways, that brings me to a very interesting period, because from 1971 to 1974, it's almost as if the band needed a reset. because as far as I can tell, they did not release a whole lot of material during that time period, and eventually Mick Bolton left the band, and they started auditioning a whole bunch of guitarists to find a suitable replacement, one of them being Bernie Marsden of all people. Yes, that Bernie Marsden from Whitesnake. But eventually, they finally settled and they agreed on ex-Scorpions guitarist Michael Schenker, who appeared on the Scorpions' Lonesome Crow album in the year 1972, then left the band. And he was only 18 at the time, so yeah, the fact that he was this great at such a young age is really saying something. So anyways, they decided to shift their approach. They decided to kind of tone down and phase out the space rock in favor of a more straightforward hard rock direction, which probably was the right move and everything. But they found a new record label, Chrysalis. Did I say that correctly? I don't know if I did. Chrysalis Records. If I said it incorrectly, I don't care about this point. And their next album, their third album, came out in the year 1974, and it was entitled Phenomenon. And as I said before, this was a definite shift away from space rock and more towards hard rock, or what some may consider to be heavy metal. If you don't think these guys are heavy metal, I understand, and I am not going to tell you you're wrong, but some people out there say they are, so I don't know what to say. But anyways, some of the songs that were on that album were Oh My, Rock Bottom, Built for Comfort, and the mighty Dr. Doctor, which forever will remind me of the opening to an Iron Maiden concert. Whenever I'm at an Iron Maiden concert and I hear Dr. Doctor come up, I know it's about to get loud and intense in just a little bit. And so it really starts to get my blood pumping. But anyways, the song itself was amazing and everything, but Phenomenon, like I said, had some really great songs. Some of them didn't quite hit the mark for me, at least not as much as I would have liked them to, but overall a very solid album. And this brings me now to where we are right now, the album Force It, which came out in the year 1975. And the lineup is Phil Mogg on lead vocals, Michael Schenker on lead guitar, Pete Way on bass guitar, and Andy Parker on the drums. And so by this point, they had completely, like I said, left behind all traces of space rock. So let's see what we have inside. Looks like we have some articles right here, and by the way, this is a remastered version. This is the version I got from Best Buy. It's just what I ended up with, and I'm just glad to have the album on vinyl. But it does have kind of a history of the band right here, and I think it's pretty decent if you ever want to read that. But yeah, lineup right there. So going through all that, then we come to the back. We have some pictures of the band, that obviously being Phil Mogg, that right there being Pete Way, Michael Schenker right there, and Andy Parker right there. So coming over to side one, it all starts off with Let It Roll. And it begins with guitar feedback, which is actually a pretty good way to start a hard rockin' song. But then it moves into a very crunching, powerful rhythm. I'm not sure if anyone else thinks this, but to me at least, it kind of sounds like Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath, which was a very influential song, by the way, that goes and it's a very creative rhythm, and I think it's a very catchy rhythm for what it is and everything. But again, within that rhythm, I did the best I could right there. It's got a ton of guitar solos embedded in it, and Michael Schenker, he was absolutely amazing. And again, he was still a teenager at the time, which I find so impressive. Okay, now the lyrics are, pretty straightforward, or at least what you might expect from a song like this. Cold Run Speed Highway was the place we'd all go. When our nerves were razor sharp, we'd all let it roll, let it roll, let it roll, let it roll, let it roll. Our machine's geared up and we're really laying it down, laying it out, let it roll. When these wheels get rolling, let them roll right over you, because I'm well greased down, I always win it through. Let it roll, let it roll, let it roll, let it roll. Now, I didn't try to sing that because apparently I'm not such a great singer. I can agree with that. But I decided to recite it, so those are the lyrics right there. Now, again, that main rhythm I really like, but kind of in the middle, it slows down a little bit, and it becomes very melodic, almost bluesy in a sense, which I do respect. I do like blues rock to an extent, but just the thing is that main rhythm really had gripped me and you had me, and I feel like they were kind of slowing it down and kind of upsetting the mood a bit, but still it does pick right back up and goes back to the main rhythm. Something I'm really going to talk about a lot tonight is the production on this album. I think is absolutely top notch. The guitar work is heavy. The instrumentation is flowing along very well, and the bass adds such an extra layer and punch to it. I really love it. But then we go into the song Shoot Shoot, which was written by the entire band actually. Everyone has a songwriting credit, so there you go. And again, just like before, it begins with another guitar distortion, but then it just goes straight into the main rhythm. This one seems a lot more straightforward than Let It Roll, at least the rhythm does. It sounds a lot more mainstream and a lot more radio accessible, if that makes any sense at all. But again, very straightforward rocker, and the lyrics seem a little sexual actually. Now, if I am missing the deeper meaning to this song in any way, shape, or form, please politely correct me in the comments section. I got ripped to shreds actually recently for saying a song was sexual when apparently it was very much not. So maybe I just have a dirty mind. But again, we have, was a fast, tough woman, loved to play the clown, won't do nothing about it, break a good boy's resistant down. Knows she's got a pistol, laid it down on me, she said, shoot, shoot, shoot it, boy, you gotta shoot it for me. Okay, but yes, the after the chorus, there's a little segment that he does. It's very briefy, but it goes, gotta get a fast ride out of here, gotta get a fast ride out of here. And I don't think that accompanies the rest of the song very well, but overall, it is a great song. Very electric, very heavy, and mostly very catchy. Now, they're going to do this a lot actually, but in between the segments, they do slow down a lot on this album a lot. Something that I've noticed, I was listening to the album a lot over the past week or so, and I kind of wish they just kept it going fast and kept it hard rocking, but still, you know, the contrasting rhythms could very much work for some people. But then, speaking of that, we come to track number 3, and it's High Flyer, which is actually a ballad, and UFO actually did this a lot during this era, the 1974 to 1979 era when they had Michael Schenker. They'd throw a ballad on there, and I'm totally fine with that. And it's not like Believe in Love by the Scorpions, where it's all about, oh baby, I love you so much, I want to win your heart forever, yada yada yada. It's not stupid like that. It's not overly sappy like that, and by the way, I really hate that song. But at the same time, it's very haunting, not overly romantic like I said, but it's acoustic driven, and it's again kind of haunting and kind of dark almost. I can say this, I think the harmonies are very good. In the interlude, we have another guitar solo. It's pretty heavy, but it's also very slow, and it's matching the rhythm of the rest of the song. So, High Flyer might be one of the more disposable songs on here, and that's fine. You know, you can't, bowl 300 every time, but I'm glad they at least tried something different and didn't just do the same thing over and over again. I respect them for that. But then we come to Love, Lost Love, which was written by Schenker and Mogg. And I would say this, out of all the songs on this album, this one sounds the closest that one might expect to come on classic rock radio. I would not call it pop rock. It is still a very hard rockin' song, but the atmosphere is very upbeat. The mood is very upbeat, and it's definitely not dark or doomy like maybe some of the other stuff we might hear later. But, overall, I think it may be one of the more disposable songs, like I said. Not really one that I reach for all that much, but if I'm listening to the album from start to finish, I enjoy it. I very much do. However, really, the centerpiece from side 1 is hands down Out in the Street. I have loved Out in the Street ever since I got into UFO. Now, when I first got them, when I first got into UFO, this was actually in the year 2007. It was Christmas. I got a greatest hits compilation for Christmas, and Out on the Street is probably the song that gripped me the most. And that's going to sound very odd going forward with what I'm about to say, but it was just the song that whenever, I was flipping through the CD trying to find something I wanted to listen to, Out on the Street is the one that I always came back to. And that's rather odd because it starts off with the piano. Yes, it does. Phil Mogg is singing and the piano's playing in the background, and it starts off very, very soft, actually. But the thing is this, I think the rhythm to Out in the Street is absolutely top-notch. I think Phil Mogg, his vocals are very strong, his harmonies are very strong, and they're accompanying the piano and the rest of the instrumentation very, very well. And as he sings, the band seems to come in and out. So basically we'll have the piano, Phil Mogg is singing, the band will come in for a little bit, then stop for a bit, go back to the piano, and then come back in once again. Interesting arrangement, but then after about 2 minutes of that, that can't go on forever, the entire rest of the band finally comes in, and it really starts to pick up, and it really, again, everything is just clicking, everything is working so well together. And then we have Lady Love to Hang On, Play It Like a Real Intellectual, Sweet Sister, You're Still Shaking, and Your Tragedy is Never Ending. Silver Shoes You're Wearing, and Every Window You've Ever Starred in, Over My Head, Over My Head. And I don't know, that Over My Head rhythm, I love it, okay? I just think everything about it just clicks. And like I said, the best word I can use to describe this song is powerful and catchy. It does slow down a little bit in the middle. Okay, gets a little bit melodic, but another strong guitar solo from Michael Schenker. But then, of course, it just picks up right again, explodes for the last couple of minutes, and it just rocks out and jams, and it ends on a very powerful, very strong note. And as you probably guessed, guys, side one is incredibly strong, but my favorite from side one is hands down Out in the Street. Let It Roll and Shoot Shoot are also very catchy rockers, but Out in the Street just takes it to a whole other level, which I really love. So that is going to conclude side one. Side two is right down here, and it starts off with Mother Mary. And this one just comes out swinging right out of the gate, okay? It starts out very fast, not fast, but very powerful and very heavy and very crunching. I would call this one mid-tempo. It's one of their more well-known songs. It appeared on the Strangers in the Night live album, which is one of the greatest live albums ever. And it also appeared on their greatest hits, which I, bought. So this was one of the very first UFO songs I ever heard. But yes, like I said, it comes out very swinging, but I would call it mid-tempo, but also very crunching rhythm. Very heavy, and once again, we have some guitar solos that are embedded into the rhythm. So again, the band is playing, but we have some guitar work that goes over it that kind of plays over the rest of the band, and Michael Schenker, like I said, was really on point here. But, we have Try to Make Some Changes, Really on the Line, Given Your Religion, Never Ever Time. All the Jokes Laughing, Queens Upon the Floor, Mothers Understand It, Baby Needs Some More. Head Held Up to Ransom by a Quick-Handed Gun, Just Your Education, Hard to Understand. Will the Teenage Legend Make a Mark on You? Make a Big-Time Status with a Pen Will Stab It Through. Now, if I had to give this song a minor nitpick, it would be this. After the verse, I guess this would be the chorus, maybe it's the interlude, I'm not sure, but it once again gets very soft and melodic, just like a lot of the other numbers on here. And it's Mother Mary, could you ever really feel the same? And would you try to understand a wild colonial boy? I guess that's the lyrics. But yes, once again, I'm not a fan of that segment. It only lasts a couple of seconds, so it really kind of feels out of place. And I don't think the vocalization is as strong as it could have been. I think Phil Mogg isn't as powerful as he is on some of these other songs. But having said all that, Mother Mary is really great, and it is one of the better songs on here. Now, Too Much of Nothing is another very hard rocker, but I do gotta say, it is one of the more disposable songs on here. It may not be as powerful, as catchy as some of the other numbers, but Michael Schenker, once again, is absolutely killing it, okay? His guitar solos are great, the rhythm is great, but yeah, another thing about it, like I said, it sounds like a very traditional hard rocker, but it does have a very murky, almost spooky interlude in the middle, which I thought was a very interesting approach, but yeah, Too Much of Nothing is okay. Dance Your Life Away is another very fast song, and it's also another very traditional hard rock song, which I am totally fine with. But yeah, we got Dance, Dance, Dance All Night, Dance Your Life Away. I think I said that correctly, but yes. It's got a pretty groovy rhythm, I would say, but once again, we are kind of contrasting with very melodic and very softer interludes with a very hard-hitting and very hard-rocking, aggressive main rhythm, which is interesting. Sometimes it really works, and sometimes it does not so work. But I will say this, the album closer, This Kids, really closes it out very well, okay? This one has a very interesting rhythm. I would not say it's very traditional, but I still really love it. Very hard rocker, very heavy, and it's also catchy, which I really like, all right? Songs, at least to me, they can be bad, but if they're catchy, they're great, and This Kids is great, and it's catchy, which just makes it all the more better. We have kids getting tired, hanging around, so cocksure, thinking aloud. Can't get it in when you can't get it out. Sure ain't enough, and there ain't no doubt. And again, I think that rhythm is just really catchy and very, very awesome, okay? Now, once again, as with many of these numbers, there's, again, a very soft and less heavy interlude, but it's very, very short. And that main rhythm almost has a staccato going for it, which I think is a very nice touch. Now, after the first couple of verse-chorus arrangements, it does slow down a bit, but it still remains very powerful and very heavy and has some very electric guitar work, and it sounds very Van Halen-like, which I like. Now, of course, these guys came out before Van Halen, so I shouldn't say Van Halen sounds UFO-like, but you know, what are you going to do? Now, after about 3 minutes and 41 seconds or so, there's actually another segment of this song, and it's called Between the Walls. I'm not sure why they called the second half of this song Between the Walls. I guess it was just so radically different than the first segment, they decided to call it something different. I don't know, you be the judge on that one, but again, I'm not sure why it's there, but they could have just made this its own little separate thing, but they chose not to, and it's not on any of the live versions that I've heard. All the live versions of This Kids that I've heard, it doesn't include Between the Walls, so it's rather interesting, but it's not really it's not really anything to write home about, but I will say this, it has a lot of atmosphere. It's very dark, and just like before, Michael Schenker sounds very strong. But yes, This Kids is going to be my favorite from side number 2. Mother Mary could have been my favorite on another day, but right now it's This Kids, and that is going to conclude my review of Force It. Actually, it's not. Let me take that back, because this edition of Force It actually has a little bonus. We actually have a bonus record. Yes, we have side 3 and side 4. It is one of their concerts from Los Angeles in 1975. And it mostly has songs that came off of the Force It or the Phenomenon album, because that's probably what they were trying to showcase at this point, because they had kind of put the first 2 albums behind them and had moved on to other things, which is very nice. But I mean, there's a few songs that are not on any of the albums. They're just songs that may have been B-sides or covers, like All or Nothing. I think All or Nothing actually was a bonus track on the No Heavy Pettin' remastered version, but overall, it is a very good live album. It's a very good bonus. And I usually don't speak about bonus tracks that often, but UFO, they give us some really great bonus tracks, usually live performances, and they are absolutely awesome. So I'll say this, if you're going to get the remastered version, it's a good idea because the bonus record with this live concert, it's a very welcome addition. It's a great show and it's a great concert, and I think it is a very good bonus. Now, other artists such as Blue Oyster Cult, they do not have the best bonus tracks, but UFO really knocks out of the park in that department. So that is going to be the very end of the review on Forsyth, and thank you very much for joining me. Next week is going to be a battle between the Mechanics and the Four Horsemen, but until then, have a very pleasant evening.